For around 50 years, he was one of Britain's most loved entertainers, deploying his many talents across a range of programmes and even being welcomed into the palace to paint a portrait of the Queen. But it was this very popularity that made Rolf Harris untouchable and able to hide a darker side that attracted him to young girls, the court was told today. He denies 12 charges of indecent assault dating between 1968 and 1986. Our Home Affairs correspondent Simon Israel reports from Southwark Crown Court.
Rolf Harris was not, in the eyes of the world, just a celebrity, but a national popular figure. He was an immensely talented man, excelling in arts, music, and above all, children's entertainment. But the 84-year-old entered the dock at Southwark Crown Court today to bear witness to allegations of a much darker side, a side which gave him the confidence to molest underage girls.
The prosecution does not for a minute suggest that there is not a good, talented and kind side to Mr. Harris. But concealed behind this charming and amicable children's entertainer lay a man who exploited the very children who were drawn to him.
It was, said the prosecution, down to Rolf Harris's fame and reputation that no one suspected or challenged his behaviour. The court heard that he was too famous, too powerful, and so much so that it meant he was untouchable. There is one alleged victim who the court was told Rolf Harris repeatedly molested over many years. The jury heard she was a friend of his family, and from the age of 13 back in 1978, she became the victim of his sexual advances. There were numerous incidents the court heard where he took advantage. By the time the alleged victim was in her 20s, she did effectively whatever he asked her to do. The grooming was complete, said the prosecution. She, in her view, had become Rolf Harris's little toy. The effect, said the prosecution, was devastating.
She drank in order to block out what was happening. Within a few years, she was a full-blown alcoholic.
Eventually, the court heard, she told her family, which prompted Mr. Harris to write to the girl's father, begging forgiveness.
I have been in a state of abject self-loathing. How we delude ourselves. I fondly imagined that everything that had taken place had progressed from a feeling of love and friendship. There was no rape, no physical forcing, brutality or beating that took place.
The prosecution described Rolf Harris's letter as a confession to a sexual relationship, but not while the girl was a child.
I said, "Why did you never just say no?" And she said, how could she say no to the great television star Rolf Harris? I had no idea that she was scared of me.
Mr. Harris ends the letter by offering to help the father's daughter, as he puts it, heal herself.
I would like to talk to you to apologize for betraying your trust and for unwittingly so harming your darling. I know that what I did was wrong, but we are, all of us, fallible. And oh, how I deluded myself. Please forgive me. Love, Rolf.
The prosecution said his sexual interest in this one alleged victim was not an isolated aberration. The jury would hear from 3 other women who alleged that they too were abused by the children's entertainer when they were young. The jury was told this was not about jumping on the post-Savile bandwagon. The evidence, the prosecution said, shows that Rolf Harris had a sexual interest in underage girls and a tendency to use his celebrity status with impunity. The prosecution ended by saying that if all the evidence is taken together, then it is less likely that any or each of the alleged victims has fabricated their story. Simon Israel, Channel 4 News, Southwark Crown Court.
It's hard to imagine a more idyllic scene. A family boat ride along the river on a beautiful midsummer morning. But this was disgraced entertainer Rolf Harris at the start of a journey that led to prison. He arrived at court with his daughter and niece. For once, his wife was absent. Harris managed a rare smile. but he must have known these were his last moments of freedom. What we didn't spot was the small suitcase that someone else carried discreetly for him into the dock. In court, the prosecutor read out damning impact statements from the women he had abused when they were young girls. The first was 7 when he indecently assaulted her. She wrote, "He used and abused me to such a degree that it made me feel worthless." Another victim wrote, "I live in a constant state of anxiety. What Mr. Harris took from me was my very essence." A third victim wrote, "I carried what Rolf Harris did to me for most of my life. It took away my childhood." And the fourth victim, "He treated me like a toy that he had played with for his own pleasure." Outside court was a statement read on behalf of the brother of one victim.
In due time, my sister will eventually share her story and experiences through the proper channels with a view to helping other children who have suffered at the hands of adults, whether they are on the telly or sat beside them watching it. Hopefully, that way some good can be brought from this sad case.
The judge jailed Harris for 5 years and 9 months. He will serve half of that before he is freed automatically. After more than 50 years as a much-loved celebrity, Rolf Harris's name is the latest addition to the sex offenders register. The judge praised his popularity and charitable works. Then came the but. But the verdicts of the jury show that you were also a sex offender. In every case, the age gap between you and your victim was a very considerable one. You clearly got a thrill from committing the offences whilst others were present or nearby. The judge added, "You have shown no remorse for your crimes at all. Your reputation now lies in ruins. You have been stripped of your honours, but you have no one to blame but yourself." Throughout his trial, Harris showed barely a flicker of emotion. Today was the same. He may be feeling grateful that the judge didn't give him longer in prison. The Attorney General has already been asked to consider appealing for a tougher sentence. Harris's ride from court was rather less comfortable than his journey to it. And this time, he was very much on his own. Martin Brunt, Sky News at Southwark Crown Court.
The letter was reportedly sent by Harris from inside of prison to a friend. That friend was so appalled by its content, they handed it on to the Mail on Sunday. In his scrawled handwriting, Harris reveals after 8 months inside, the inner rage has come to the fore. He says, "I've started writing a song about the injustice of it all." What follows next are lyrics to a song that Harris says he plans on recording as soon as he's released. In it, he describes his victims as woodworms climbing out of the woodwork, who are only out to make money. And later in the letter, he goes on to boast that prison is no hardship, really. "I'm in the art room as an assistant to the tutor, and basically I'm doing what I like." Harris charmed television audiences for decades before he was found guilty of molesting 4 girls, one who was just 7 or 8 at the time. But despite that conviction, it's clear the disgraced entertainer still believes he's done little wrong. Liz Dux is helping some of the victims to now bring a civil case.
This is a man who has absolutely no remorse for his very, very serious crimes. He has no understanding of the lives that he has shattered by his actions, and he is totally oblivious. He behaves as if it was his entitlement to behave like that.
It's possible Rolf Harris could be released from prison as early as next year. There are calls for any future parole hearing to take the letter into account. At the time when Rolf Harris was convicted, the judge who presided over the case said he's shown no remorse.
"Why won't you apologise, Mr. Harris?"
Almost a year has now passed, but it would seem little has changed. Katie Spencer, Sky News.
Position about there, that's good, that's good.
Rolf, I know that the Australians aren't affected by hierarchy and things like that, but I did notice that you kissed Sir Jim's ring when he came in. Is this an exception for you?
It was somewhere for the bishop.
I mean, we go back a long time. What was it, several weeks ago, wasn't it, when we first met?
Several weeks, yeah.
You've been playing your records a long time, though.
Well, You played a couple of them over the years in the 60s.
1,000 times have I played.
Yeah.
Don't Be Cruel, Blue Suede Shoes.
Yes.
All those things with this young man.
Okay. That's it. Lovely. Good night. Okay. Straight at me. 1, 2, 3. You
Let's get Rolf back here and doing over their shoulder shot of me listening. Is this the finished product, Rolf?
Yeah.
That it?
May I present that to you, Sir James? Is it Sir James or Sir Jimmy?
No, it's Jimmy today.
Sir Jimmy.
Yeah, today's fee dictates it's Jimmy. Sir James comes a lot more expensive.
Oh, I see. I didn't know they were giving you a fee on this.
My goodness gracious.
What do you think of that?
I have never been...
Well, you've never looked at it yet. What are you talking about? Or you're watching it upside down?
I'm
Sorry.
looking at it upside down. I've got Antipodean eyes and I can see it upside down. What do I see? I see strong character lines. I see liquid brown eyes. I see the firm jutting chin. All together makes
nothing like
a horrible sight.
Oh, there's a lot of bluffers in this game, I'll tell you. Rolf Harris, what the fucking hell can that man do? My mother thinks he's a painter and decorator. Tie me kangaroo down, what's all that about, the dirty bastards? What's all that about, tying kangaroos down? 2 little boys, what the fucking hell's going on? Hey! Tie me kangaroo down, what's all that about, the dirty bastards? What's all that about, tying kangaroos down? 2 little boys, what the fucking hell's going on? Hey!